So we'll start with, these return to work office mandates for that a lot of companies have begun implementing. And I know you guys conducted some research into how employees feel about returning to the office in a more full-time scale. So in your research, what did you guys find? I mean, are most people wanting to stay at least somewhat remote?
Yeah, I mean, the overwhelming data indicates that, people really want hybrid flexibility, right? So they don't want it to be dictated to them when they need to be in the office. You see some of the data is as extreme as that a lot of people are willing to take a pay cut versus going to the office. So this concept of coffee badging is really about showing face in the office. So we do this annual state of remote work of hybrid work survey of over 2,000 employees. And what we found is that more than half of them say they have coffee badged over the last year. And that really is just the idea of going into the office to show face so that people remember that you're in the office or that you look like you're complying with what might be a return to office mandate.
But how long are they actually staying in the office for? Is it a matter of minutes? Is it a half day? Or are they putting in close to 8 hours?
Yeah, it's not very long for the most part. So like I said, over the last 2 years, especially in 2023, you've seen companies go to these return to office policies, but they're fairly soft, is what we see in large part. It's you need to be in the office 2 to 3 days a week, not necessarily dictating what days those are. And so one way to get around it is the return to office policy is just playing that role of going in. Now, employees do find value in the office. They find value in group meetings. They find value in collaborating. They find value into meeting their colleagues and being face to face with their colleagues. So they may be going in for a meeting or two, and they don't necessarily need to spend 8 hours in the office, and they don't want those tasks to be dictated within that time window. So they're going in for a brief period of time and then going out and finishing the day from home.
And, at least in this industry where we have to be on air at the end of the day, that seems unfathomable to me. But are they getting away with it? Do people, at the end of the day, are most people keeping tabs on how many hours you're at the office?
I We don't see that there's a lot of monitoring happening right now. And we do see that, it is some of these policies are very difficult to enforce. So for example, if my manager happens to be in the office on Monday and Tuesday as his or her 2 days a week, and I'm in Wednesday or Thursday, how is that monitoring happen? And employees don't want to be monitored. They want flexibility. They feel like they're as productive. And if you have a culture of accountability and they're performing, are you really going to push the envelope to police them coming into the office at a certain time, leaving at a certain time, and meeting those minimum requirements? That is if your job doesn't require you to be in the office for whatever reason, like yourself.
Unmuted myself. So for people who don't necessarily need to be in the office, where do you see this headed in 2024? Are we going to see more employees saying, okay, turning a blind eye, don't ask, don't tell, or are we going to see more employers starting to police this and, crack down on, hey, you swiped in at this time and you swiped out at this time? What's your expectation?
I don't think that you're going to see employers policing it. I think that you're going to see employers starting to try to entice employees to come into the office. So some of those top reasons that employees would be more willing to go into the office would be things like having their commuting costs subsidized, knowing when other teammates are going to be in the office, access to greater privacy or technology, and having the same comforts of home in the office that they would have at home. So I think you're going to start to see some of that in some employers enticing employees to come back into the office. I don't think it's going to be a hard mandate. And ultimately, I think employees are happier when they have hybrid flexibility. So there's a little bit of friction between those return to office mandates and the employee's desire to be hybrid. So we're going to have to see how that friction plays out, but employers are going to have to be careful. Otherwise, people are going to be very willing to look for other jobs that have that hybrid flexibility.
Do you ever see a day coming back where the majority of Americans are in the office again 5 days a week, or are those days gone?
I think they're long gone. So roughly 20% of the people that we surveyed say that they would be willing to do a 5-day in-office work week. And, that means that 80% are not. So as the labor market loosens up, that means people are going to be more than willing to look for alternatives if they're forced into the office 5 days a week. I think it's gone.
Interesting. Frank, any other insights that you feel like are worth mentioning that we didn't talk about,
So
especially from the data that you collected about the
just
state of remote work?
from a data perspective, I just want to go back to this concept of pay cuts. So 62% of the employees that we surveyed said they would take a pay cut of 10% or more if they were no longer able to work remotely or hybrid. Think of that for a second. That's almost 2/3 of the employees that we surveyed said they'd be willing to take less money for that flexibility. So I think that that's very telling as it relates to, how we see the future playing out, and the fact that employees are really going to be able to dictate the terms here.
Yeah, do you think is that did the pandemic have a role in just shifting a lot of people's perspective of how they value work-life balance? Or more people, they saw how good it can be and they aren't willing to go back? Is that what we're seeing, or is it
Without 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 question, we run this state of hybrid work study every year. But prior to the pandemic, we used to call it the state of remote work, because the concept was always that you don't have to live in San Francisco to compete for San Francisco jobs. You should be able to do them from anywhere. And it was a very nice growth trend that we were seeing, where more and more people were working in a hybrid or remote fashion. And I think now what you're seeing is that the pandemic completely accelerated that trend, gave everybody a taste for it, and there's no going back now. The concept of the Monday through Friday 8 to 5 work week is just dead.
I'm gonna just clip that last sentence and send it to my boss.
Right? That's what most people say.